So imagine we walk into a library together, and I tell you, go pick out a book that's going to help you learn and grow in your business career. What section of that library are you going to? Think about it for a moment. Now, maybe you have images of self-development books and leadership books, biographies. You might be thinking that you'll be in the nonfiction section of the library. What if I told you that you're actually in the wrong section, and that you would be better served to grow and accelerate your business career, not by reading business books, but by reading fiction, reading novels? Now, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I myself am a novelist. I write fiction books and publish them for a living, but I'm also a business person, and I started my career on Wall Street. I'm now an investor and an entrepreneur, and I can attest to this kind of startling dynamic that reading and writing fiction has helped me so much more in my business career than reading nonfiction and more pertinent books per se. And I think there's this big misconception that we have today that we need to maximize our productivity and always just be up-leveling in our specific niche and field. And we're missing out on this vast possibility that comes from expanding our brains and our hearts. And a sample conversation that I might have in my daily life, I'll be at an investing conference per se, and someone will come up to me and they say, oh, I hear you write books. Do you write leadership books? What kind of books do you write? And I say, I write fiction. I write coming-of-age stories, women finding themselves, falling in love, having friendships, relationships. And they'll kind of smile and they'll say, oh, that's fun. I wish I had time to indulge in reading fiction, but I'm so busy, and when I read, I just read nonfiction because I like to learn. And I don't mean anything bad by it per se, but the implication here is that fiction is frivolous. Fiction is just this kind of accessory to our life, when really it's core and it's vital to our growth. And business leaders really have the power and the opportunity now to leverage fiction to accelerate their own growth and unlock the full potential of their teams. So we're going to talk about a framework here that I've presented, and then we'll go into a little bit of the supporting research. So the 3 prongs of this Venn diagram that you see for how reading fiction helps propel our business careers. The first is escapism, the second is agility, and the third is empathy. And then together they come up, have this beautiful cross-section and lead to this holistic development. But we'll dive a little bit more into each one of these. So let's start with escapism. So fiction uniquely transports us to other worlds. Think maybe about some of your favorite childhood books, be it Harry Potter, the Chronicles of Narnia, Magic Treehouse series. And you physically are getting out of your reality and your day-to-day stresses or routines, and you're transported to Hogwarts, to the Enchanted Forest, to all of these vast lands, even outer space. And it's activating our imagination in a really, really powerful way. Because applying that to the business world, that type of innovation and creative thinking is so vital. It can help us stimulate our entrepreneurial itch and start that business, or launch or pitch a new product idea, or even on a smaller level, just reorganize how a process runs at work, or introduce a new way to organize the team and collaborate. That power of activating our imagination in a way that fiction does even more than nonfiction is really, really powerful and useful in the business world. So the second key pillar that we see here in the Venn diagram is agility. Reading fiction makes us more agile business leaders. So what do we mean by this? Well, nonfiction, oftentimes you'll pick up a nonfiction book, and within the first page or the first chapter, you kind of know where the book is going, right? It's laid out in a very linear fashion. Maybe these are the 5 points to effective leadership that you're going to get. I'm not saying those books don't have value, they do. What I'm saying is, when you read fiction, it doesn't go in that linear fashion. You're having to twist and turn and go through all of the challenges and the triumphs of the hero's journey. And you're much more having to pay attention to subplots and nuances and connect dots, and it's not laid out before you. And that's really great training ground for how we think about applying and tackling business problems. Because you're more agile, you don't need everything to be explicitly delineated in a clear way. You can react, you can pivot, you can be nimble. But agility in the business world isn't just about speed and being quick. Sometimes it's about being slow, taking a pause, sleeping on something before making a big decision. And I think that we can sometimes lose sight of this in nonfiction when we're racing. And fiction actually makes us slow down. These are big novels. A lot of my friends say, Lindsay, I don't have time to read over a 300-page novel. I need the Spark Notes just to skim the version of it. But it's a really great exercise for expanding our attention spans and for then really seeing the arc of a story from beginning to end and the agility of our brain to connect dots and sometimes slow down to make that next best business decision. The third and final circle here in this Venn diagram is empathy. Fiction makes us more empathetic. So, empathy has long been correlated with being a strong leadership trait in the business world. And when we are experiencing different perspectives, different characters' journeys in these books, we're really uprooting ourselves and laughing and crying and feeling all of the emotions and feelings in these characters' journeys. That's so powerful, especially in our world of globalization where, maybe I grew up in a small town in Michigan in the Midwest in the US, and I couldn't necessarily travel all over, but I was able to experience a lot of different perspectives through fiction. And it made me more empathetic and better able to connect with people in my real world and in the business world. So this empathy is really effective for leading teams, for igniting teams, and for connecting across differences and cultural backgrounds. And it's not just my original framework here that is, showing that this is a link between reading fiction and having strong business growth. There's a lot of research and data supporting this. So Harvard Business Review shows that, reading fiction compared to nonfiction actually leads to more open-mindedness, more creativity, less of a need for something called cognitive closure. And what researchers describe cognitive closure as is this need to have everything wrapped up kind of in a tidy bow, not to have any loose ends or ambiguity. So having a lower need for cognitive closure is really great and helpful in a business context because it means, as we know, the business world doesn't work in black and white. The world doesn't work in black and white. So a lot of times we have to make decisions with the best available information we have to us, but it's not all closure oriented. And so fiction, because of the nature of it and because it's a nonlinear fashion in how you read, you're able to connect those dots and make the jumps and apply a really strategic skill set to your business decisions. They also found that reading fiction leads to even stronger social acuity and emotional intelligence relative to nonfiction. And that there is better communication as a result and really healthy debate amongst team members. So this is really important, and I want to talk a little bit about how fiction uniquely fosters this environment of healthy debate. So with a nonfiction book, sometimes there's a little bit more charge or divide because you're debating something that's real, right? It's true, and everyone has these different opinions, and it can feel sometimes personal and sometimes feel like there's an agenda there. And with fiction, the whole point of fiction is there really is no one right interpretation. It's a beautiful ability to basically just bring together people and say, how do you interpret this? Oh, I might see a blind spot over here. Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. Wouldn't you want that as a CEO and as a business leader? Wouldn't you want your team members to look at the same data set from 15 different perspectives and come together and then share your different ideas, have this healthy discourse? It's so needed, especially in our world today that can be so divided. Fiction can really bring people together in a way that is communal and collaborative. And all of this together leads to more innovation and growth in business settings, better decision making, the ability to tackle complex challenges, and improve team culture. So it becomes clear then that fiction is not frivolous. It does not detract from ROI. It actually adds to it. And it's a win-win at the human level and the bottom line. So the question then becomes, can our productivity-obsessed culture really embrace this notion and this surprising reality that fiction can actually expand us and teach us even more than nonfiction, and that stretching out of our comfort zone can be a really, really good thing. Now, reading fiction is more than just a hobby. It's a habit that helps us grow, develop, and excel, individually and collectively. So I encourage all of us here today, start a book club at your company. Propose that. Sure, definitely have a healthy mix of fiction and nonfiction. But maybe start with a fiction novel. Branch out of your comfort zone and come around the table and hear other people's perspectives. The beauty of fiction is that it expands our minds and our hearts. There is this vast world of possibility. And while nonfiction can be so helpful to help us learn about yesterday and understand the context of today, the future is built by fiction. Where would the tech industry or aerospace industries be without sci-fi novels? These things that were make-believe stories are now our reality. And fiction really can propel us to places that we've never been, can dare us to dream bigger, and to turn those big dreams into reality. That is the power of fiction, and that is the truth of fiction. Thank you.